The path of an artist is full of challenges, which has pushed me to reach out to other professionals about their experiences. Join us as we explore the journeys of fine artists who have turned their passion of creating art into a profession. From their highs to their hurdles, these are real insights, breakthroughs, and triumphs to inspire other creators to reach higher. Welcome to the Business of Art podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Business of Art podcast, where we dive in deep to the fine artist journey. This week, we are so excited to have Kathy Sigle with us and her husband, Jim. Kathy and Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Hi, we're so glad to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. This is exciting. Today we've got, like I said, Kathy and her husband, which is a little bit different. We've never had a couple on here. Kathy insisted that we have Jim with us because he's been exceptionally helpful to her with her career. So I'm going to just kind of go over her bio, and then we'll kind of dive into your story. So Kathy has been a professional artist and mostly full-time since 1988. That's more than 35 years. That's really impressive. She began with pencil and colored pencil, and then she has transitioned into watercolor. And she really loves watercolor, the versatility and the ability that she has to create depth with thin layers of glazes. She grew up with a deep connection to the Western lifestyle, spending a lot of time on a ranch and with horses and in that Western way of life. She loves to paint horses, buffalo, cattle, ranch scenes, and is really passionate about preserving that Western way of life through her work. She's a signature member of the Northern Plains Watercolor Society, and she has artwork in private collections across North America and beyond. And she loves being an artist and is constantly striving to improve and grow in her abilities. She and Jim both live in South Dakota, right next to the Badlands. Is that right?
Well, we're on the northern part of the Black Hills, so it's about an hour from the Badlands.
Northern part of the Black Hills. See, I should have wrote that down.
That's right.
So let's dive into your story, Kathy. We want to hear how it all kind of began, your history, and we want to hear all about it.
Well, it's a God-given talent because it's something that I've always wanted to do, was to draw or paint. And my mom was an artist, but when I was young, I didn't see her paint very often because she was busy. We were always building houses. My dad was an engineer and built houses on the side that we lived in. And so my mom actually built with him. And then when we moved down to Argentina for 2.5 years, my mom took an oil class from a master painter down there, and she really enjoyed it. But that's kind of just a little bit of what I saw her painting. And then we moved back. My dad had a choice of moving to Washington, D.C. or South Dakota. And so he said, well, I've got teenage kids. We'll go to South Dakota. And that's where we bought some land and then the horses, and we built a house out there. So a lot of her time was doing that. But so it wasn't until, I was continually drawing with pencil. I just had a love for pencil and color pencil. And that's what I was working in, say, when I was in high school and in my early 20s. And then she took a watercolor class from somebody his instruction just clicked with her. And because before that she was doing oil and struggling with it. And after taking that watercolor class, she came home and she said, you need to try watercolor. And so she sat down with me and she'd paint a little bit and then I'd paint exactly what she painted. And she'd paint a little bit and then I'd paint exactly what she painted. So we ended up with both having a painting that looked quite similar to each other, but that was my one lesson in watercolor. And after that, Jim and I moved to Spearfish. So we were, about 4 hours apart from each other. So I just took off, just kind of really trial and error with watercolor, but I loved it and have gone on from there. My mom won in 1988, she won the South Dakota Waterfowl Restoration Stamp, which is like a Ducks Unlimited. And that sent her to go to shows. And so she'd like, "Go, you come along with me and you bring your artwork too." So what few little watercolors I had, I added to her show. And so that kind of got us going on the show route. And each year we'd add a little bit more, a few more shows, painting full time with that. I stayed home once we started having kids. I stayed home so that I would be home full time raising the kids while Jim was off at work. And then during nap time, that's when I painted. So I did paint every day, but it may have only been 30 minutes or an hour, But I made sure that I stayed steady with it. That's and awesome. Then when we started going to shows, the kids would go with us on some they wouldn't. So we kind of involved the whole family when we could, but none of my kids like to paint full time like I do. So
I would say they all have their own talent, though. They're all very good artists. Our son is a carver. Our daughter's a writer.
And the other one's a cookier.
The youngest is a very good artist.
Professional cookie baker. Yeah.
So
that's really incredible. The experience with your mom and being able to have that connection and her showing you when she was going through all that and you learning from her and learning together. That's incredible. What an awesome legacy that is created for you guys.
It was actually probably a good thing that I could see that she struggled through some mediums, that it wasn't all easy going. And then and she kept trying different things. And when it finally, the medium that clicked with her, it was just joy. She just really took over with it. And I continued to do pencil work along with watercolor. So I was trying to find my way of earning an income as well as staying home full time. And so I started doing a lot of pencil portraits. So then I set up a booth like at Art in the Park and I had some portraits, along the walls, and then people would come in and I'd take orders for those, like little kids with playing baseball or anniversary, whatever. And so that I was getting very, very busy. I kept my prices low and I was getting a lot of orders for that. And at one time, my youngest was 2 and my drawing table was the kitchen table. That's what it was where I did my art. I had a anniversary portrait of a man and wife, I think a 50 anniversary. And I was almost done with the faces, and we had to frame it up and they were going to come pick it up the next day. Well, I went downstairs to change the laundry and my little 2-year-old had an M&M in her hand and had climbed up on the chair to see what I was doing and had innocently put her hand mark on the face of one of them to get when she was stepping off the table. I think she was 2 or 3, but so when I came back upstairs to draw, there was this orange handprint in the middle of a face. And I thought, oh no, what am I going to do? So Jim came home for lunch and he took a really super fine sandpaper and he just sanded that off. And in the meantime, I had called the lady to tell her what had happened, who was going to come pick it up. And I said, I'm going to do my best to get it done by then. And I finished it and it looks fine. You wouldn't have known that there was an orange handprint on it.
And that was my humble beginnings in the art business.
Yeah. Art restoration.
The lady said, if you had never said it, I'd have never known that there was this handprint. So, there's been some ups and downs.
Yeah. No, that's really funny. It was just about a week ago. I had my first real doozy of an experience with my kids. My youngest daughter is 3, and we had some friends over, and her and another 3-year-old, they teamed up and they literally nearly entirely covered a painting they got into my studio and they took all the paint off, and it was a mess. There was paint everywhere.
Oh boy.
including them. They looked like little like little warriors. They had war paint all over their
And
face.
this is
and their
oil,
arms.
right?
And it's all oils. So it was pretty rough. But luckily the paint that they covered was totally dry. And so I was able to work off all the wet paint, and I had to do a little bit of touch up on it, but it's fine.
Oh, wow.
But, oh man, there were some choice words spoken and some frustration. It was, having kids and being an artist has its challenges.
Yes. Yeah.
For the last 12 years, I have been a professional oil painter, and it has been an incredible journey with some really big challenges and a lot of successes. I've been included in some of Western Art's biggest museum shows. I've been featured in some of the top Western Art magazines. I've sold hundreds of paintings, and I've made a really great living. But there's definitely been a massive learning curve to get my art to where it is today. So I've set out to help shrink that learning curve for other artists who are on the same path that I was. I'm really excited to announce the early bird launch of my online course, The Business of Art. In The Business of Art, I'll be guiding you step by step through my painting process, going through everything from what materials I use, how I prep my panels, all the way to varnishing and framing my art. And I'll be going over the techniques that have helped me to transform my work into what it is now. I'm also pulling back the curtain on how I utilize Photoshop to efficiently get my reference images solid and ready to paint from. But that's not all. Understanding the value of your work and how to price it is crucial, which is why I'm also including my painting price calculator. I've personally developed this calculator over the last several years, and it has made pricing my work extremely simple and has saved me a ton of time. Guys, I truly believe that this course is worth the investment and will be a great resource for you on your art journey. But if you don't find the value that you're looking for, we have a full 30-day money-back guarantee. Click the link below, and I look forward to seeing you in the course.
So it sounds like you've had the support of your family pretty much the whole way through.
Yes.
What a blessing. That's awesome. Now, Jim, I think people are wondering how do you come into this besides restoration? How else are you involved with what Kathy does?
For the most part, we started out slow. I mean, I was a full-time general contractor, built houses, and I would come home in the evenings, frame all day on houses, come home and frame pictures for Kathy in the evening. And then we opened a small gallery downtown, Spearfish, for a while, for only a year or two. And she'd be down there all day with the kids after school. And then she'd take orders for framing and matting. I'd come down there in the evenings and do the list. And pretty soon we figured out that this is not good. We have no home life. The kids are suffering. We closed that down. But I would just do whatever needed to be done to help her. I could see her talent. I always knew it was there. My mother's an artist as well. So I knew all the things that needed to be done. If she was going to be painting, producing, doing the thing that she does best, the most important part, I could support her in whatever I could. So,
Yeah, in the beginning, I was painting and framing, my originals, and then I decided to get some prints made. So I sourced that out this was back when we did lithographs. They didn't have, these weren't a thing.
Yeah.
And so when I ordered lithographs, you have to order all 500 or whatever at once and try to market them and sell them. And so I was doing all of that myself. Well, of course, he was going off and working like he just described. But then he came to me and he goes, well, I can help you with the framing. And I was like, okay, that'd be great, to ease my load a little. And then it got to the point where he goes, well, I think I could make the prints. And I was like, what? Yeah. And so we bought a
Epson. I don't even know what the numbers were, but it was a 24-inch wide.
Yeah, 24-inch wide Epson. And we used that for, 7 or 8 years. Actually, I think we went through 2 of them. And
when was that roughly?
Oh.
How much?
No, when?
When?
It was 2000?
No, 2000. It was
About
after 2000.
Around there-ish.
So how long had you been doing prints before then that you were outsourcing?
Oh, probably 10 years.
Okay. So for quite a while.
Yeah. My very first print, I wasn't even thinking, well, I was kind of thinking of getting into prints, and then an art gallery owner told me, she said, oh, you don't want to do prints because that's going to just take all your time and you're not going to be painting. And I'm like, no, because I could see some diversification there,
Yeah.
And so actually somebody came to me who bought an original from me and said, I'd like to have prints made of this. Are you okay with that? And so that kind of got us started to where he took half the prints and I took half the prints. That was like one of my very first prints.
Okay.
And to learn the idea of numbering and record keeping and all that, it was all new. So that was back, it was lithographs, so we had all this paper sitting around.
Yeah.
And then we ordered another image and we had 500 more sheets laying around, so it gets to be quite a lot of inventory to haul and move, to keep around.
Yeah.
And at the time then when Jim said, I can help you, and we bought the Epson printer, that was just a clay printer. So
yeah,
we had been outsourcing down Southern California for a year or so.
Wow.
And then down to Colorado, Fort Collins, did our work for a while. And, just looking at the books, you can see how much you were paying them for these prints. And that's when we figured, you kind of see the blue sky that you were paying for in there. And
But it's also the time and energy to do it, to make it, So like, we still have to house the rolls of paper, the canvases, the inks, and we have the challenges of when the printer decides to spit ink in the wrong areas and, printing a big one and the canvas runs out before the print, So there's its challenges. But when I painted a little original that was about,
4x8.
4x8. It was little. Jim took a picture of it and he said, I'm going to make a print of this one. Because, it sold immediately. And I don't even remember what year that was. But so he made it. It was the eyes of a horse. So it's, really a close-up piece. Well, then he made it about life size. And it sold immediately. And then he goes, well, I'm going to make it bigger. I'm going to make it 2 foot. And I thought, that's larger than life seems kind of weird. And he goes, no, I'm going to make it 2 foot. So then he made it 2 foot and it sold immediately. And he goes, well, I'm going to make it 3 foot. I'm like, oh, that's really weird, because back then we didn't see things like that. And so he made it 3 foot long and it sold immediately. And now we have made that piece as big as 7 feet.
And it sells immediately.
From the little original that was this big, which maybe I sold for like $250. We've made thousands now off of it because we were able to diversify, not have all our eggs in one basket kind of a thing,
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really glad that we're talking about prints here. I think so many artists, when they think about doing prints, it can be kind of an overwhelming, even just thought process of saying, okay, how can I do this? And so, it sounds like you guys have gone through the whole learning curve. What were some of the biggest challenges early on? And if you could go, like, let's start there. Let's start with the challenges. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced?
Well, in the beginning, we were doing paper prints because I paint a watercolor, and just the thought of watercolor on canvas was very strange,
Yeah.
And they didn't have the ability to paint on canvas with watercolor like they do now, or at least I didn't know of it. But so all of my prints were on paper. There's the framing of glass and mats was included in that. So if they're shipping, you've got glass, or it's heavy for transporting to shows.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, back then, different than now, is you made brochures and you mailed them out. You didn't have social media, So it took marketing on our end to try to get the word out that, hey, we have prints, because this was prior to websites too. And so going to shows, getting them into stores. I was interested in wholesaling, if it's a print, I can wholesale it, kind of a thing. And so that was our very first challenges, was getting the word out about it. But now, with the ability to have the canvas, there's no mats, no glass, it's lighter weight, it's easier shipping, social media, it's easier.
Yeah.
My challenges was learning how to use a printer.
Right.
And learning enough about Photoshop to be able to maneuver, around the screen and place things where you needed to. And I had watched, by then we had some social media, and I'm watching YouTube videos on how to, and this is back when Photoshop, I had like version 5.
Yeah.
I still have it today. It works just fine for what I need. Actually, I'd like to learn more, but so.
Hey, I've got a course for that, just so you know.
That's why I brought that up. Learning color, changing colors, when a photo comes in, or when I take one of Kathy's pieces, I need to look at the original to see and make a proof print and find out, the blues aren't blue enough. And then you start messing with the blue and it changes the purple because there's blue in purple, so I'm learning all this.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought you'd just go in there, put a picture in there, push print, and out would come magically a print just as good as Kathy's original.
Right.
And though they do a very good job, and these G-Clay printers, you can stand back and sometimes it's kind of hard to tell which one is the original and which one is the print. I mean,
Wow.
that's not saying anything against the artists. That's that the printers are so good. But I had to get monitor, calibration equipment, and do all this. And so spending quite a few hours learning that was the drawback for me. And what my printer shows, what my screen monitor isn't necessarily what yours is going to look like if you look at it. So we had to deal with a lot of that. I'd email images to people and they'd go, "Whoa, what?" It looked fine when I sent it, but what they got was something totally different. So we learned all that, and it's not that difficult. So it made us have work available to people maybe that couldn't afford originals. People would come into the booth, and not judging anybody, but you want to have something in there for everyone. Price range, size-wise, all of the above. So
and once people found out that we can make large pieces, they have large walls. There's those people with huge walls, and they'll come in, and all it takes is to see one, and then I can start talking to them about, well, this can be made 6-7 feet if that's how big your area is, and so it opens up a whole new world to them of being able to afford artwork other than what's at the chain stores.
So my brain is just going here as you're talking about all of this, and as far as time factor goes into preparing prints. Now you're going to these art shows where you have a physical setup. You have like a booth, walls, display panels. You're bringing probably a big trailer full of stuff to these shows. What's kind of the logistics around that for you?
Well, Jim had the brilliant idea of starting off with some mini prints. And so we have these little 4x6s, 3x7s, 3x9s. We kind of stick to 3 different sizes if we can. And so I'll have a box full of those. That's a huge number of my artwork. And so when people walk in and they see, that I have a variety of sizes of artwork on my wall, and I start talking about prints because, I try to feel them out. Are you an original buyer? Are you a print buyer? And I'd say most people can't afford big originals, but so I'll tell them, I'll pull a little mini out of the box and say, well, this image can be made 3, 4, 5, 6 feet, and if I talk to them about, well, are you looking for horses, cattle, and if they want horses, then I can take them to the horse section and go through all of that. And
it's almost like a little index that she has.
Yeah.
And people can look at 50 different horse images or buffalo images or cattle or children or,
And they're just little.
Yeah.
But when I can talk to them about, see how, when there's a big one on the wall and I have the little mini in the box, I can say, do you see how that one grew? Because sometimes you have to really talk people through this, that they don't get it. But some, of course, they get it right away. But that helps them to visualize, oh, I can get that larger. And they get all excited.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But setting up the entire booth, we go to about 8 shows a year now. We've gone to as many as maybe 12. And it's, it's some work handling all that and getting the inventory ready. Some shows we go to, people don't even, they may buy the work, but they flew there. So we have to take all the artwork back home
and ship it.
Which is fine. You have to be willing to do that sort of thing.
Or when we're working with people through the internet, somebody may say, I just love your work. I want a horse piece. I have a huge wall. And so we'll start that with maybe size-wise. So I know, okay, do you need a vertical or a horizontal? And then I'll start sending them images, and then I'll send sizes and then ask them, well, just take some blue painter's tape and tape off your wall the dimensions that I gave you, and then step back and see if you like that. Because art shrinks on a wall.
Yeah.
It's amazing how people will tell me later, oh, I wish I'd have got a bigger piece, Yeah. Kind of a thing. If they're buying a print. And so most people are just thrilled with the idea that we've helped them through with that so they could get exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, that's really going the extra mile, but it makes sense. So with conversations that we've had in the past where when you're doing originals, it takes you a while to complete your original works, right?
Yes.
You say that you're a slow painter. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but your work is very, very beautifully rendered, and there's lots of detail, and it takes a long time for you to get your originals completed. So to me, like, it makes sense that because it takes you so long to create an original, that selling the prints becomes really, really like the best option. And what a great way to maximize the time. Basically it's reimbursing you for your time over and over and over and over again.
Right. And we do have other artists. It kind of started, we weren't advertising, Jim's printmaking. Artists would come to us and walk in the booth or see my work and say, where do you get your printing done? I can't find a good printer, or I'm thinking about making prints. And I'd say, Jim does it. Well, so then it started, if you're interested, we'll talk about it. And it's grown, we probably have, 20 artists we work with ish, more or less. And some are very, we hear from them once and then not again, because they just aren't pushing to sell their work. And others, we get quite a few repeat orders from them.
Nice.
But let's see, what was I going to say about it? The fact that you sell one original, you make 500 or 1,000 or 5,000 off of that, and then it's gone. Sorry, it's gone. But when you can sell it in a print form as well, have that option, then you can multiply your money and your time and all that. The artists who order from us don't have any time involved in it. We just ship them the prints and then they sell them.
Yeah, that's so. Another question is, I think about the opportunity cost and things like that whenever I'm thinking about adding something to my plate as an artist. And so I guess how do you balance between the two? How do you find that balance between creating originals and managing the prints? And it sounds like you do, like you have what's the word where you have a certain number, right? You have
Edition
like a
number?
like an edition with like a numbered edition, and they're signed. And how do you manage all of that? How do you juggle it all?
Well, if you are the sole person where you're the painter and the printmaker and the framer and the shipper, that is going to greatly reduce your time as a painter. And so for me, of course, it's extremely helpful that Jim does it. And I think that's where it's helpful for artists maybe who come to us and say, can you make my prints? Because they're not involved in that time aspect, it's sent to them. I try to paint during the daytime, and then occasionally orders come in, and then, I'll write up the invoice and I put it on Jim's desk. And so when he comes into the office, he sees these little yellow slips everywhere, and certain spot. Then from there, he makes the print and he takes over his end. And so I don't meddle in what he's doing unless the customer's asking me, when's the ETA of the shipment or something like that. So then I'll find out from him. Otherwise, he does all of the printing, and I don't mess with that. So I do the marketing and talking to the customer and, sizing. We always discuss sizes and prices with each other, before we give that out to customers. But, and we do we follow a chart, so our pricing is consistent. The numbering, in the beginning, I numbered everything. And I have to have a book that keep track of every single number and the size that it was made and
Yeah.
whether it was framed or not and who bought it and the date and all that. As I started certain series, like maybe the horse eyes, I didn't number them. That's an open edition. But I found that through the years, I would guess most people aren't caring about the number. A few do. A few do. But most just want the artwork.
Yeah.
And I do hand sign everything.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense. And it sounds like it sounds like you've had some pretty nice systems kind of in play. You've established different systems of doing things. What are some of those systems that you've created and that have helped you to really optimize your time and organization?
In the printmaking part of it?
Yeah,
like for Jim, he picks up the yellow slip and then
then complain that I've got too many yellow slips.
We are pretty busy.
It's a good problem.
She has her master binder that she has all of her prints, a few pages in there with the numbers, and it doesn't take her very long to, open it up and just put in the size and the number, who bought it. And but she's right. I think it was the 60s, 70s, 80s that people wanted numbered editions of the famous, Robert Bateman's and the well-established artists. And I think it has come in newer generations to people want a nice, colorful, pretty picture that goes with their decor.
Yeah.
Not everybody. I mean, there's still some collector type.
But talk about your process of
my process.
after you print it.
I'll try. Well, once I print some, it needs to dry for at least half day or so. So I have some racks in my basement where I can set things to dry. Then I take them off and I give them a coat of varnish, which is an ultraviolet resistant, water resistant. Makes them pop a little bit. You can have different satin varnish or flat or glossy so then I put them back in the rack and let them dry. Those have to dry, overnight or 24 hours at least. Then I mount them on a board, a gator board it's called, which is a rigid acid-free foam board that's sign quality.
Okay.
And
With an acid.
and then we kind of we have racks where we keep her inventory. I keep 2-footers, 30-incher, 36-inch, 48-inch that we've made ready to go, that you can just pop in a frame. No glass, no mats. So it makes getting ready for a show, or when orders come in, it's a good chance I might have something already made.
We did have. Go ahead.
No.
Different opportunities may arise, with the print business, and so somebody contacted me and said, we're having a 4-H such and such for a week-long thing, and can we put one of your paintings on the outside of our barn? Or, are they safe outside? And I thought, well, she wanted a big framed one, and I thought, well, I think so. So Jim did a test, and he took a little 5x7 of a print that's mounted. It's exactly. It was actually like a little mini print that we sell, and he submerged it underwater for 24 hours, and took it back out, and you wouldn't know anything was wrong with it. There was no curled edges, no peeling, nothing. It just looked normal. And we've also put them out in the sun, like with a penny on it to see if it faded, and it didn't. So I said, yeah, I feel pretty confident that it, as long as the wind doesn't knock it off your wall, and so she bought it and she put it on her barn for a week, so they're pretty durable.
Yeah. That's
the
impressive.
whole process does take quite a bit of space. You can't do all this, especially when you start doing 6-7 foot prints.
Right.
we got them kind of laying all over the basement, which is my workshop down there. But to do everything in maybe a 12 by 14 room, that's going to be really difficult.
Yeah.
You're going to have a
have
space.
Dedicated space. Yeah.
Dedicated space. So here we are trying to downsize because of our age, and I still build houses for us, and we're downsizing, and our houses are getting bigger. So I don't understand that concept, but I do have some nice workspaces, and but it does take room just to let things dry and just the process. There's about 3 or 4 steps.
We also do gallery wrap, where the canvas is wrapped around the stretcher bars. And we have, like, I had a lady in Japan want to order a big piece, like a 5-footer, I think it was, and wanted to know how she could get it without being really expensive. So what we did was we rolled up the canvas and we rolled up the stretcher bars. They're stretcher bars that we gave her the instructions on how to put them together.
Yeah.
Put them in a tube and shipped them to her. Arrived just fine. And then she put it all together.
Wow.
So,
a little video for her to watch.
Yeah.
To see how to do
awesome.
it.
So that's and then we have rolled up prints and shipped to Australia too, and then just left it up to them to, frame them or stretch them.
So that makes a lot of sense to me, where you're creating like almost like tutorial videos for these people, and maybe you've created them once and you just save it and just use it over and over again. So there's a lot of things that you had to do once, but if you do it right, you don't have to do it once, and then you can reuse it over and over and over, which makes a lot of sense. So there's definitely some investment early on, but it gets easier over time.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
We also do run into parts where, like I said, the ink spray's wrong, or the print comes out halfway, or an ink clicks in the computer, and we have to get all new inks, and one ink is the size of a VHS tape, $100, and it's
$300.
$300 an ink, and there's 12 inks. Yeah, I mean, it is, there's expenditure into it too, but
yeah, absolutely. So when thinking about space here, when you guys are doing, I'm assuming like a print run, or you're getting ready for a show and you're trying to get a lot of prints done. How many prints typically do you try to have for a show? And what does that look like in that workspace?
In his workspace, or the finished gallery?
His.
We have stations, so he's got the station that he does the varnishing and the assembly, and he's got a drying station, and then he's got another section over that he does the frames. We have an underpinner, for the frames, and you know what that is? That's the V nailer. That when you're putting 2 corners together in a frame, and it shoots the V nail up into the corner. Yeah,
so it goes into both sides of the wood and it holds it together.
Yeah, the V shoots into both sides. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's down there. And so he's got an area that he's got, he goes out to the garage, cuts his molding, and brings it in to his room, and then he assembles.
Yeah, so there's an inventory of things you need to have also, if you do the framing also. So I've got a rack of 10, 12 different moldings that we use, depending on size and color. Pretty limited there. But I'll do about 6 or 8 prints at a time per station, and I just keep them moving through and on my drying racks. And of course, every day they shift to the next rack, and then the next rack, and I'm printing more to come in. So I wouldn't say we make a whole lot of inventory.
Except he does keep the printer running every day. We're always
that's printing. The nice thing about it is that you don't have to do a special print run on one day. You can go in there, turn it on, and print one, and you're done for the day. In fact, it's probably better for your printer to run it every day. Some of the new printers, we now have a Canon 44-inch wide printer, and it's so smart. I mean, it cleans itself, and makes adjustments. And, I'm glad, because it's way smarter than I am, that the printers can almost run themselves. So, your investment, your time, you talked a little bit about the investment of time and in your opportunity and seeing if it'll pay. Even though, inks cost quite a bit, paper, canvas, you need to have plenty in stock in case American supply chain fails you. You're not shut down. You can keep going.
Yeah. So
that's still way cheaper than farming it out to someone in Denver, or wherever you happen to live. I think a person could do all this themselves, an artist, and the faster they paint, probably the little bit more time they would have to make prints.
Yeah.
You wouldn't go quite as large as we go, or as many. You wouldn't handle other artists. If you just did your own, it would still pay for itself, and and your bottom line would still be a whole lot better. You probably just wouldn't be as involved or such a large, undertaking as far as space. And so.
Yeah. So, man, this is fascinating. And I hope you guys are okay to just dive into this print thing, because this is really great stuff. So you go to 8 shows a year. Now, is that where the majority of your prints are selling? Like, what do you have other markets you're tapping into? Well, what other areas? How else do you sell prints and bring in revenue?
We sell at the shows. We sell a lot online, and then I also have been wholesaling to a few, gift shop kind of places, and we are with a gallery that sells a lot of prints, and of various sizes.
Okay.
And it's kind of interesting to watch over the years, the sizes that went out. For 8 or 10 years ago, it was those 24-inch ones just sold. And now it's more the
5 and 6
little ones, like from maybe 10 inches on down, or 4 feet and bigger. So those middle of the road have softened, and of course has to do with the economy, I'm sure.
Wow.
People with big houses can still afford big art, and people who don't still can have the opportunity to get art, but it's a smaller piece.
Yeah. So, how do you make those connections with like when you're doing wholesale and these gift shops? What are you doing to are you promoting that, or is that kind of come to you? Does it fall in your lap? How have those connections been made?
Some of them have contacted us because they saw it somewhere else.
Okay.
Some, I guess I've not really ever walked into a store that I can think of and said, "Would you like to sell my artwork?" I guess I did once, but most of them, they've contacted me because they've seen it somewhere.
Yeah.
That's one of the values of going to bigger shows where they have a lot of traffic flow, national shows such as you go to. And Kathy's audience is more the cowboy rodeo, type crowds. And so people come through by the thousands. And the good thing about shows is you make a lot of contacts at shows. I remember 15, 20 years ago that we didn't do real well financially at a show. And I was telling her, I don't know if we should continue doing this show. And she says, but I met this person. And she got into this gallery later, in Jackson Hole. And because of contacts that she made at that show. And so those kind of people, a lot of them have little stores, and there's a lot of these little programs out there now. I don't know what they're called exactly, the Etsy and these platforms where you can sell your work. And those, if you take advantage of those little things as they come along, they can grow into. So we do a lot more wholesale than we ever thought we would. But that's still profitable when you make your own.
I don't think we ever intentionally set out to do wholesale. It kind of came to us. And you'd be amazed at the power of a note card. I've had people contact me and say, I received this note card with your artwork on it from a friend. Do you have a print of that? And he ended up buying a 4-foot print, of that image. And so don't overlook little things like, you may think, oh, it's just nickel and dime, those note cards, but they're powerful.
Yeah. That's really neat. And as I'm just sitting here listening to this, it sounds like as you guys have gone out and put yourself out there, you're going to shows, you're pounding the pavement, you're talking to people, you're making connections, and things happen. It's like you get the ball rolling, but then there's kind of this momentum that builds over time, and opportunities arise, and then you meet them and you grow with them and adjust and
to just to be able to dream up an idea. Like an artist from Texas, contacted us a few months ago and for the first time, and we started printing her work, and she had these little 6x6. Her originals were 6x6, and they were a series of something. Okay, so they could all hang together or separately. And her intention had not been, she hadn't even thought of hanging them together. But so she wanted prints to be, the same size as the original. And I said, well, you could go larger. I said, after she received the little 6x6 canvas prints from us, she was just elated at how they were. She loved them. She was so excited. And I said, I could so see this on your wall or a customer's wall as a 18 by 18 triptych, all three of them,
Yeah.
And she hadn't even thought of that idea. She just thought that is such a cool idea. And so she's going to maybe run with that, but you have to sometimes visualize that and present it to the customer. Promote it on your Facebook, or your Instagram, or, that kind of thing too.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And that's, you're limited by your creativity, really. Right.
Yeah. We had when we go down to Vegas, our trailer is packed tight. Well, we have very limited space there, and we can go up, not out as much. So we went up 10 feet. And so I wanted to have a big piece up there at the top of our booth. And it's hard to haul or ship a huge piece. And Jim said, I have a Longhorn piece that's open edition. And Jim said, well, I'm going to make it into a triptych. So it's one single piece with 3 Longhorns on it, but he cut it up into 3 pieces, canvas wrapped it. And so therefore, when we take it down, it's, a 30 by 30 instead of a
30 by 90.
30 by 90.
Right.
And then when we can ship it that way too, and we've sold quite a few that way, just because it's a really cool triptych idea, where the original painting was not a triptych. But
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
Way back when we were first starting, I don't even know where we came across it with a person or something we read or something that said, your business will treat you the same way you treated it. And so if you're kind of a hobby artist and that's all you ever do is paint a little bit here and there, and you maybe, show your paintings once in a while to somebody, that's really all you're going to get from it. If you treat it like a business, you invest into it, into yourselves and into your market, and all of the display, it'll treat you like a business. And so it seems like many people, when they ask, what do you do? It's like all we do now is our art business. I'm not building houses anymore. But we're full time, and they can't understand that with an artist.
The two of us are both full time with this.
Because really, it's just a little hobby thing where it's like, oh, I have trouble with this painting. Kathy could be doing workshops and things like that you make, and because everybody wants to get better, and it's not ever an easy thing. She's worked hard at it, just as you have. And so over time, over 25, 30, 40 years, she's become very good. And I want to see her succeed to the best that she can. She deserves that. So I think if spouses or, others can help the artist to expand their horizon, their vision, that it'll pay dividends. And that's not like the only reason we do it. It's not like we're going to get super wealthy off of this, but we have a good lifestyle. We're able to be in our children's lives, grandchildren. Kathy doesn't spend as much time as she'd like in her studio because she's got 3 grandkids, a couple blocks away from us. So, and different things that you need to be involved in life. You can't just seclude yourself and hide in your studio. So,
right.
You just treat it like a business, and it'll come back to you.
That's awesome. And I think, as I've kind of pursued some other endeavors like this podcast and creating online courses and things like that, there's always a learning curve to something new, and there's that initial push that is always way more challenging just because you're learning a lot.
Well, you're scared. You're scared to put yourself out there.
Right.
Invest, if you think it may or may not come back to you. So.
Right. And there's risk involved for sure. But I think what's been really neat for me to see is that every time I do that, one, I learn a lot, and I learn more about me. And honestly, I've been kind of surprised, like, wow, I can actually do that, and we have so many resources like YouTube and everything under the sun now with the internet. We have so much information at our fingertips that if you really want to learn how to do something, there's the resources to learn it, and you can figure it out.
Yeah.
So here's another question for you guys. If you knew an artist who was just starting out, who really wanted it, and they wanted to start doing prints similar to what you guys are doing, what's some advice you would give them? Maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 things. Just what would you recommend that they do to jump in and to have as good of experience as possible?
Well, maybe question them first, like, well, where are you selling your work? Because if you are just at your house and expecting people to discover you, it's not going to happen, so you have to get it out there, whether it's a local art club, a local gallery, or start doing some kind of shows. And then to have a variety of sizes in the prints. Like, I'm not saying go get 5 of each size, but maybe try having a couple minis. And then we worked with one girl who had a 12 by 24 piece, a sunflower, and she made it the size of the original. And I think maybe one of us, I can't remember, suggested, well, how about a bigger one? Because long vertical ones are nice. And so she made it, I don't know, 3 foot tall. And, it's amazing how striking a piece can be when it's enlarged, And so I think she sold those right away. And so a variety of sizes, nice. The idea also, I was just telling you, of the triptych, and so being able to offer a couple different ideas, but probably first of all, where do you plan on selling them? Pushing them, talk about it online.
I've worked with a couple artists on. Not too many we've talked to have actually gone out and bought the printer and got started and went full bore. But there is, I don't know if it's just one or if there was two, but I'm not, sometimes people are like proprietary and I'm not telling you my secrets and stuff like that. And it's like, no, there's no reason for that. I share everything I can, the products I use, the time it takes, we want everyone to succeed. So,
yeah.
But they have to know of the investment. They have to be ready. I don't think someone just starting up maybe it's not probably their time yet to go out and buy a printer.
Yeah.
But they do need to maybe start looking at getting in some smaller local shows or something like that. And, Kathy is well known in this part of the country because how long we've been here and how long she's been painting. And so you name any rancher around here, and Kathy's probably been there taking photos, and they probably have a piece of Kathy's art in their house. So
yeah,
it doesn't happen overnight, but you have to be persistent. So that's the things we tell people. We're willing to help them to a point. I mean, plate's getting kind of full, but if we can help somebody, we're more than welcome to or willing to do that.
I added to his plate because I wanted to buy a sublimation machine. Like, we can make our own mugs, our own coasters. And so we started to do that. And then this artist kept contacting us. Can you do my mugs? Can you do my coasters? He's like, enough.
Yeah. We got to line somewhere.
I mean, yeah, mugs are a challenge. Sublimation does not come out like, it's not as easy peasy as you think it is. But that's just another little side business for when he has time to put his feet up.
So that's a great conversation, though, because it sounds like you can dive in as deep as you want into reproductions and prints and sublimation. I didn't even know that was called until now. But so it's something that you guys have taken on gradually, right? It's been as things have grown. The business has grown as you've grown in just getting more handy with what you're doing. You're getting systems in place. Then you expand, move on to something, add to the plate gradually, not just jumping in, into the deep end without a life jacket.
Because you can spread yourself too thin. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So let's say, just another hypothetical situation, let's say an artist like me, I'm pretty well established. I know how to, I sell art online, but I'm mostly selling originals. Occasionally I sell prints, but for somebody like me jumping in, what would you recommend as far as some of the basics of, let's say I want to start doing my own prints, and maybe I've got somebody who's going to, maybe my wife has more time now and she can help me out and we can kind of jump headlong into this print thing. What are some recommendations you might give me?
Well, you could start in your shows by having maybe a print bin and seeing, and then framing a couple of them, see how they go compared to the originals. Not saying you want to lessen your original sales, but you'll definitely hit another price bracket of people, that can afford your artwork if they can buy a print, and if you don't want to invest a lot of time and space, money and space into framed pieces, you can just do shrink wrapped ones. Or if they're canvas that's mounted on Gatorboard, we don't even shrink wrap those. We just have a bin with those sitting in it. That's one option.
I'm not sure there's an easy answer to that question, Mark, because different parts of the country, they're all different. The Midwest to the North to Texas, and different price points. our cost of living, everything is different. And so I think the market's going to be different. If you're able to go to more prestigious shows, you sell more originals, you can demand a little higher prices because of the shows that you go to, and because you're so good, you sell them quite readily. And so that doesn't happen with all of us in maybe our part of the country. Incomes can be lower or different, or, financial things are just different. So we have found in our part of the country that we need to diversify into several different things. And that happened in my business also of building houses. Is you can't really be a specialist in any, a tile layer or a sheetrocker or a painter, because there's not enough work for you to do only that. You have to learn how to do lots of different things in building a house in order to make it. So,
although the internet has allowed
internet
selling worldwide, and so having prints available gives you the option of, like I said, when we rolled up a print and shipped it to Australia or Japan, or shipped it a flat piece of art to someone else, you have a huge following. If you put your prints online like that, then I think you wouldn't have any problem starting with prints. But someone who doesn't have a big following, then I think like having the print bin at your booth will help a lot.
Yeah. So let's say I'm not doing a ton of shows, which I honestly don't. I don't take my work to a lot of and set up a booth. I do that pretty rarely at this point. But so for me, the online aspect is very intriguing. And so what are some ways that I can try to promote something like that? Like, let's say I want to do prints online. What are some things you guys would do to promote it? What's been successful for you in promoting it more online? What are some best practices there?
Well, posting daily, posting various sizes. I know that would be hard. The various size one would be hard to do in the beginning, if you only have one size to show somebody, but explaining the option of being able to print it 5 inches or 5 feet, promoting it that way. Another option or benefit of having prints, like, say, I know I'm moving off your question for a minute, but like you, who maybe sells all originals and your galleries only want originals, if you started making prints, you could hit up some gift shops or other galleries that sell prints that aren't even in the same town as your original gallery, and say, like, if you don't have a gallery in Cody, you can take your prints there, and sell them. That kind of thing, where you're making more money and not only relying on what you yourself can push around with your brush. Yeah.
No, that's a good insight and a good approach. How many, I guess, is it like, even just a rough idea, how many prints do you typically sell off of your website versus at these shows and such?
I don't sell as many off my website as I do online. And when I say online, I mean like Facebook, Instagram. Okay. I sell more on that versus the website.
How do you handle those on social media? How, people are messaging you and they you get an order that way? How does that happen?
They message me, and then I'll talk to them about that. That's when I step into the size thing. Where do you want to put it? Try to get them to visualize. Is it going over your couch? Okay, well, how big is your couch? Can you measure? Give me a length, and then depending on the image they're thinking of, I can proportionally tell them the height. and say, okay, if you want that to be 4 feet, then take that blue tape and here's what the height would be, and tape that off on your wall, and step back. So I walk them through that kind of thing to get the size. And then after that, then I show them prices, such as if it's unframed. When I say unframed, it means it's the canvas mounted on the hardboard, ready to be put into a frame. So we offer it unframed, or do you want it framed, or do you want it gallery wrap? And I give them those different prices.
But I think that all of that comes, and she mentioned it, from posting daily or almost daily different things that she's done. She'll even pull out something she did several years ago, put it on there and said, I did this one a couple of years ago. I really like it, whatever. And people will respond to those posts, reply or whatever you call it, and say, I'm interested, or can I still get one of these? Or, and that'll start the conversation.
Yeah.
But she'll put a lot of huge ones out there.
Yeah.
That are like as tall, I'm holding one standing next to it, and it's as bigger than I am. It's like I have to ship a door, that's what, and people will go, wow, I didn't know anyone could make big art, and so she'll do a lot of those, throw in her pencil work, which is really fantastic. And people will want those. So I think using the internet platforms are really where you have to go nowadays. Just if all you have is a website, you have to market the website, or somehow people don't even know it's out there. So
the thing I don't like about the website is there's no interaction, and if I can interact with them, I'm much more apt to close the sale.
Yeah. So when you post on social media, and you have an image of a painting you've created, or I'm assuming you even have images of you with like a final print or the original or something like that, so that people can gauge some kind of a size, do you also just write down like these are available as prints? Like how are you, like, what's the verbiage that you're using?
That they're available in prints of various sizes. Okay.
So you're letting them know that this is available if you're interested in buying this in some form or another. It is available. That's okay. That makes a lot of sense. You're not just putting it out there as this beautiful image and then hoping people ask you if they can buy it.
She does some of both. That's a learning process. Also, some artists put a nice piece out there and they let people know it's available, and they put a link that actually will go. They can actually buy it right there. We're probably we're probably not that refined just yet.
Yeah. Well, that is to buy that exact piece. Yeah. But if I can get them to correspond with me, then the power of suggestion is really powerful. So I can suggest a 2 foot or a 3 foot, or do you need it to be vertical? Do you need it to be horizontal? Whatever the case may be.
And you step in as the professional in helping them to solve their problem with their wall space, right?
Right.
So you change your hat from being the artist to the decor professional, and you're helping them to solve their problem.
Right. And they love to talk to the artist. They want to talk to the one who created it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're making you're creating a relationship is what you're doing.
Right.
You're some kind of emotional connection with these people. They know you, they know your work, and they probably like both in the end. Right.
Well, when COVID hit and, everybody was shut down, and I started putting things online, and a lady from Oklahoma contacted me and said, I need a painting in this one area in my living room. It's just a problem area, of what to put up, because it's kind of a hallway in my living room. And so I asked her, well, send me a picture of it. And so then I gave her some ideas. Well, we could do this, or we could do this, this, and this, what we ended up doing was a big piece that was like about 4 feet, and then on each side, a long, skinny, narrow one, and then a tall one along the top. So it ended up being a sale of 4 different pieces. And then she says, wow, you're really good at this. What about my bedroom? And so she took me, through photos into her bedroom, and 3 different walls, we put artwork. And then she goes, well, let's go into the bathroom. And so I ended up basically through her whole house selling her artwork for every single room.
Wow.
And that's when COVID hit, and it was all done online and through messaging.
And that was all with a contact she made at one of her shows.
Yeah.
That they liked her work and took her business card. And so we just took all that artwork. It was cheapest just to drive down to Oklahoma and
delivered it
to them.
And of course, that just made her all the happier because she's here we are delivering the artwork.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Our main concern was, well, could we get gas between here and there in 2020? What was open?
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, a couple experiences I've had. I do a lot with Photoshop, and one of the things that has helped me, I do this with commissions occasionally. I'll have somebody ask about a commission, and they have a specific space they're wanting to fill, and I'll have them photograph it. And what I do is I have my composition. It's not necessarily the finished painting, but it's a composition that I've created, and I basically impose it in Photoshop onto their wall space. And so they actually can see what that looks like as far as the scale. And then, when we get the size to fit, my painting, hypothetical painting size to fit that space well, then we figure out the scale and we measure what those dimensions would be. And then that's what I create.
Right.
And so have you guys ever handled it that way ever?
No, that's a little more techie than what I get. That's why I have them do the blue tape.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about the blue tape, I thought that's kind of exactly what I'm doing, but I'm taking it a step further where they can actually see it on their wall.
Right.
Like I just put another layer in Photoshop and boom, I put a little
you're a
shadow
little bit
underneath
better
it.
at Photoshop than I am. Yeah. Oh, and another thing I just thought of is, as far as the prints go and the numbering, as an artist, this may be, I don't know if it's ethically wrong or whatever, but for me, say there's 150 in the edition, and I know years ago you'd have the artist proof edition and the publisher's proof edition and the regular edition, and that's just a lot of editions, but I keep the number within, say, 150 of numbered editions from 2 foot on up. And whether it's 2 foot or 3 foot or 4 foot or 5 foot, it's numbered within that 150.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense to you, but so I don't have 150 2-footers and 150 3-footers. They're all within that 150 number. And then we do have the just open editions of, say, 15 or 18 inches and lower.
Okay. That's so you're still able to sell prints in smaller sizes, even though the larger edition is closed.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's nice. Well, I don't know. Yeah. What would make you question whether or not that's ethical? I'm curious. What's your thought process there?
Because when we first were doing it, when everything was signed and numbered, and because I think it was probably because there was the artist edition, the printer's edition, the regular numbered edition, everything was always the same size because they were lithographs,
Yeah.
The whole edition was printed at one time and everything was the same size. So just mentally, all artists always thought your edition was always the same size.
Yeah.
And I've not heard of anybody else doing it different sizes within the same numbered edition until I started it. Now I know after I've talked to artists, then they start doing it.
That's really good. It makes sense because technology has shifted.
Yeah.
Our abilities to print, I would like even on demand, is so much more reasonable, especially when you're doing it in-house. And I'm assuming that's pretty much how you do things now is on demand, correct? Unless you're prepping for a show, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which makes total sense. So you're not sitting on a bunch of inventory. You don't have.
Well, we do have shelves of like our mini prints. We sell a lot of mini prints. And so he'll continually stack that up, 8 or 10 mini prints of each
Okay,
image.
and that makes sense just to be productive and make sure you're on top of the stuff that's always moving. But you've determined that over the course of the years, and like you just need to have those available all the time.
Yeah, especially if you do wholesaling.
Yeah,
for those.
That makes a lot of sense.
Like those mini prints you can do at gift shops,
Yeah. And
they like those.
Yeah. Oh man, this is great information, guys.
Your wheels turning.
It's so much to think about, but it's also it sounds like if I don't know if every artist is in a situation where they could just sell prints and make a great living doing it, but I think it's something that's worth looking into. And my personal thought is, and how I've been handling it up to this point is I do a lot of outsourcing so far. Luckily I've made a good connection with like a local UPS store who is really good to work with, and they've got great archival quality materials and things like that they use. But as far as outsourcing, at least to start off with, what are some recommendations for people to look for and keep in mind as they're kind of determining how to do that?
The archival, I think, is really important, like you mentioned, because I know of an artist who outsources their prints, and they're really afraid when there's going to be a rainstorm because it ruins the print, which means there's no varnish on it.
Yeah.
And so maybe their end price of to receive their print costs less than maybe what we would sell it for. But you got to think of the quality materials that's being used. Like I know there's a lot of big markets out there, Vistaprint and all these others who can make prints for you, but just be aware of the quality of the inks and the papers or canvas that they're working on. Like ours, you can put it underwater and it won't hurt it.
Impressive.
But and hopefully you won't. But so when people ask, well, can this be in the bathroom because of the humidity? I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. Yeah. But so that's what I would. One question that they need to ask is the longevity of it.
Yeah. And making sure that the materials that are being used are archival, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What else would you recommend if somebody is looking for a place to work with?
Well, we're always open to discussing with an artist as far as like printing their work. Sublimation, Jim's not interested in right now because he's still working the kinks out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, but we're open to that. But otherwise, I don't know any current G-clay printers because we do our own, so I haven't really investigated that.
Yeah. But maybe would there be some red flags that would like make you, like if you were to looking or outsourcing and you're doing some research, what would be some things that would turn you off to working with somebody?
Well, maybe you could ask them what other artists they work with,
Okay.
Because I know when we were trying to work through California and having our prints made, and they were make these little like 8x10s of a buffalo head for me, and then I asked him one time, well, can you make it like 11 inches instead of 10? Well, they stretched to 11 inches and they kept the height the same. So I had a pig nose buffalo. I'm like, really? And they actually sent that to me. They were, it's like, hello.
That's when we decided to get our own printer.
So something wasn't clicking there. But
my opinion on that question is that we've been in a booths before when we go to shows, and we've seen we walk around and we look at other people's stuff, and they have the same image in this size, in canvas, in paper, on a mouse pad or something that they're selling, and they're all different color. Oh. It's supposed to be red, and this one's more orange, and this one's more pink, and I'm like, okay, so a lot of these places, they'll take whatever file you give them. I mean, they don't really have a choice. That's what they print.
Yeah.
Well, it may not be the same on their printer as it is on your screen. So their proofing process is very important, that you're going to be getting the same product that you're shipping them. And it may take a few times of going back and forth to get that right. We're always interested in speed. Can you have these done by next week? It's like, well, because we don't always have someone send us the original. That gets kind of nervous and expensive and could get damaged or stolen or whatever.
Yeah.
So we'll work off of images they send us. Well, then I have to print something, maybe send it back to them, say, how's this? Or have them send a professional photograph along with it,
a photo that they like compared to their original.
Here's my file, but there's also a hard copy, and we want it just like this. And so then I can use that to adjust the colors to be exactly the same.
Okay, so that makes sense. So they would send you a digital file, plus they would send you a hard copy of an actual print production that they have proofed.
A photo.
That they feel good about the colors. And then you have something to gauge off when you're printing.
Right. The hardest part about printing is being able to gauge off of something, because you have no idea. Kathy's work, I just go upstairs and look at it. But
So if you were outsourcing to someone else, you could take a photograph, a hard copy photograph with you, along with the digital file, and say like to your UPS guy and say, I want it to look like this.
Yeah.
That is helpful for them. If some businesses like that, whether they're big or whatever, don't want to fiddle with color and details like that. They're like, no, it's the push the button and that's what you get. So I guess with us, that comes a little more personal.
Yeah. As soon as we get it right, I can save that file.
Yep.
And then if they want a 3-footer, I'll make a copy of it. I mean, so I'll have like one image in the computer, and I've got 10 different sizes. So I need a lot of terabytes of storage to save all these copies, so I don't have to keep redoing it. But so as I scroll down through Kathy's paintings, there'll be like a whole page of one painting, but they're all different. My latest run, I'm in the basement and varnishing, and we've got 6 different prints of the same painting.
Sizes.
Of buffalo crossing the Yellowstone River right outside of Cody there. And they're all different sizes. Some are cropped. One guy wanted it 22 inches tall. One guy wanted 28. And so we've approved all this. We sold them at the show, and we talked it all over. But I'm like, these things are laying all over this room, drying, and they're all different, but they're all the same piece, and so you're able to adapt to what the customer wants, the size they have available,
Another thing to watch out for is, like in our situation, is the humidity level. Because when we moved into the current place we are now, where he's in the basement, and so he was varnishing, and it's like this is not working. So he called the company, the varnish company, and it's like, or the canvas company, and trying to work through, because either it's bubbling, or it was bubbling,
or drying too quick,
leaving lines, and so to try to figure out that humidity level.
Yeah, it came down to the humidity.
Wow.
And so we had to buy humidifiers, and in the summertime we got to buy dehumidifier, and so we're
it's kind of a
pumping
science
water in one end and taking it out
that
the
out
other.
too. If your varnish is working, that might be why. The other day he ruined a 30 by 40?
40 by 60.
A 40 by 60 canvas.
Oh.
And it was drying too fast, so it was leaving the lines.
Yeah.
And he varnished it twice, and is like, nope, that's going to be ruined. So I have to start all over, because the humidity was not enough down there.
So it sounds like you roll on the varnish. Is that how you're applying it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can either roll it or spray it. You got to have, of course, a dedicated room to spray. And
yeah.
And one at a time.
The equipment. I have learned over the years the right pressure and the right kind of rollers, and I can do what I think is a perfect job.
And he's pretty picky
with rolling. So
particular.
Yeah, some people go, "You rolled that," and I'm like, "Well, you just learn how to do it."
Yeah, the 30 by 60 is a big one.
The right amount of varnish, it's self-leveling, and if you don't use enough, you'll see lines. If you use too much, it'll pond on you. But it's just practice, and what works you keep, and what doesn't you throw out. And so
Also, getting back to printing onesies, we printed like a single for like Chauncey. You probably know Chauncey. And we've printed for Brandon Bailey. And those kind maybe don't come in a lot, but they do. Or we keep it. Then we've got his piece on file, and if he ever wants another one, then
back when we were starting, there was still the Kincaid.
Yeah, Thomas Kincaid.
Thomas, I couldn't remember his first name. A big empire printing.
Yeah.
I mean, a big store, a big warehouse where they did thousands and thousands of pieces. And that's what he was known for. And Terry Redlin out here in South Dakota. And so these famous painters were probably millionaires off of a conglomerate of their originals and their prints. And so that's when we thought, well, if these guys can do it.
Well, it sounds really funny. We can do it.
If it works for them, it'll work at our level as well. So,
but I think that there's a lot of truth to that, and it's easy to be like, oh, well, that guy is super famous, but how did he get there, right? And I think if somebody else is doing it, it means that somebody else can do it too. It's
attainable and out of sight, out of mind. So if you can get it out there in front of the public in whatever form, it's an income for you.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I love about, as I've been doing these interviews on the podcast, is every artist I talk to, they all have a different approach. Everybody sells their work differently. They all go to different venues or get it in front of different people. But the common denominator is that they're doing something and they're getting it in front of people and they're putting effort into that. And as they do that, things happen. Connections are made, traction starts happening and it just kind of works out. And so I think, honestly, to me, it's like you start working at it, you start getting out there and things will happen. If you're committed to that, things fall into place. Yeah.
You have to believe in yourself.
Yeah. And, I don't print everything, some originals stay original only, so, but we do print a lot.
How do you determine that?
If I really, really like it. No.
Yeah, we seem to be wrong quite often. It's like, this is the greatest piece ever, and I think it's going to sell really great, and crickets. They're just like, how come no one's interested in this piece? But then we'll take something else that's like, Well, it's probably not one of my better pieces, and I painted it a couple years ago. But
for the
but
most,
now it sells like crazy in the print form.
I think for the most part, you have a feeling that, like, I think this one will go fast, or I think this one will be really liked,
She sold out of around 3 prints now. That means all 150 of the edition. And so they were like some of her really very good compositions and better pieces. And now she's like, I can't sell any more of those. I have to create a new piece, similar subject wise and et cetera. And so she can start that process over again. So,
yeah.
But it's also like, if it's getting to the end of the 150 or the numbered edition, it kind of creates a frenzy for other people. Like, well, I got to get this or I can't get it again.
Yeah. Well, it creates urgency.
Yeah.
So I have one more question, just because it's come up in my brain a couple of times and I get distracted. What are your typical sizes for originals? Like what's your typical size range?
There is no typical.
Or like, what's your biggest and what's your smallest? I know you do the really smalls, but what are your biggest?
Well, the biggest has probably been, I did it as a triptych as 10 or 12 feet.
A watercolor?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
It's on aquaboard. Yeah.
But that's not very typical, is it?
No. And a lot of it is just because of the transportation of it for me to take it to shows. And I do typically 4 foot down to like 8 by 10, but I don't paint very often in the standard sizes, 8 by 10, 24 by 36. I paint long and narrow or, odd sizes.
Yeah. Okay.
But oftentimes, like I said, that little one, I painted this little one, which is easy to paint, easy to sell. And we've made thousands of dollars off of a print of it.
Yeah. So how do you photograph to get how are you actually photographing them? Are you having them scanned?
No.
What do you do?
We've watched them scan before, and most of them are going, seems like, towards photograph. So we invested in special lights, and a flat lens, they call it, to go on our camera that gets rid of the rounded
fuzzy
edges, and just have a really high quality, really high quality camera.
Yeah.
And it's in our basement. We set it up on the easel, and I have a tripod, and I'll turn off all the lights in the room because the halogen lights are going to cause pollution, they call it, in your light. And so we only use the light sources that are made for that purpose. And so I'll take 3 or 4 photographs with, pretty much have it figured out through trial that what speed the camera needs to be on. And I'm not a photographer per se, professional by any means. So once you learn what settings to put your camera on, you just leave them there. And but
I would say you're a professional photographer, Jim.
We just trial and error.
Because you're selling a lot of your photo reproductions.
Well, that's because Kathy painted them.
But you're doing them justice, and that's why they're selling. So, guys, this has been a wonderful conversation, and I think we could dive into all the nitty gritty and all the details, but I don't think that's necessarily the best approach here. But I'm going to have some links down to like your social media, so people, they can at least see what you're doing. Are you open to people reaching out to you if they're looking for some points and tips? Like, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, they can talk to us.
Okay. All right. Well, that's very kind and generous. And again, thank you for being so willing to take some of your time for this and to help these aspiring and emerging artists. If you could end with any like parting words of advice, what would you guys want to leave with?
Don't be afraid to try it, whatever it is, treat it with professionalism, whatever you want to do, whether it's painting or whether it's printing. Go at it with a positive attitude and just try it.
Yeah.
One thing that I think of when it's the art business is it's really, and you'll agree to this one, that it's a small world. Just the way that we've gotten to know you over the years, started at one show, and we've seen you in other places. That the friendships, the relationships that you develop, when you said when people buy, they want to deal with the artist, when they do and they can talk to the person and see them, and then they eventually buy from them, it's like they are buying a part of you.
Yeah.
And so we've developed these friendships, and people that we didn't even really know 5 minutes earlier are like our best friends now. Yeah. And they say, whenever you're traveling through our area, look us up. You're free to stay here, come see us, do whatever. And it's like you have this network of people. You'll go through life and you'll see that maybe in your church or something like that, where you meet people all over the place. But the art world is somewhat the same.
Yeah.
In that you're all trying to accomplish the same goal. And Kathy brings joy to these people. And that's pretty much why I think she paints. She enjoys it, but it brings joy to people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good thing. We need more beautiful things in the world, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Guys, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you, Mark.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure.
Hope we contributed a little bit of something good.
Oh, I think people should have been taking notes, and if they haven't, they need to rewatch it and take notes. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks again for tuning in. That's going to be it for today's episode, and we'll catch you on the next one. Happy painting, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Art podcast. If you're interested in resources and education to help you successfully create art and then sell it, please check out the Business of Art course in the link below. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you in the next episode.